My neighbor Bill knocked on my door at 6:15 last Thursday morning with a check in his hand and the biggest grin I'd seen since his grandson graduated college. He said 5 words that stopped me cold. "Harold, this thing actually works." The check was for $1,847 from 15 minutes of work the day before. I'm Harold Ashford. I'm 74 years old. And what Bill was talking about, what he learned from watching me do it every single morning for the past 3 years, is going to sound impossible until you understand how morning time works differently when you're over 65. See, most people think retirement means sleeping in, rolling out of bed at 9, maybe 10 in the morning, reading the paper, watching the news, maybe some coffee and a crossword puzzle. I did that for exactly 6 months after I retired with $11,000 in my checking account. And you know what those 6 months taught me? That the most expensive habit in America isn't drugs or gambling or fancy cars. It's wasting your morning hours when you're over 65. Because here's what nobody tells you about retirement. You wake up at 5:30 anyway. Your body doesn't care that you're not going to work anymore. Your internal clock still ticks the same way it did for 45 years. But instead of using those early hours, the quiet hours, the hours when your mind is clearest and the world hasn't started making demands on you yet, most retirees waste them. They lie in bed staring at the ceiling. They shuffle to the kitchen and turn on Fox News or CNBC and let other people's problems fill their head before they've even thought their own thoughts. They check their phone, read depressing news, worry about their Social Security check, wonder if their kids are going to call. I did all of that, every single day for 6 months. And every single day I got a little poorer, a little more worried, and a lot more convinced that my best days were behind me. Before I tell you what changed everything, I need something from you. Write in the comments right now, "My mornings are my advantage." Not later, right now. Because what I'm about to share only works for people who understand that being awake at 5:30 isn't a curse. It's the biggest competitive advantage you've ever had. The problem started the day I retired, March 15th, 2017. I walked out of the accounting firm where I'd worked for 32 years, carrying a cardboard box with a coffee mug, some pens, and a picture of my late wife, Sarah. I thought I was walking into freedom. I was actually walking into the most expensive phase of my life. Not because of medical bills or inflation or any of the stuff they warn you about in those AARP magazines. Because of what I did with my mornings. For 32 years, I'd been up at 5:15, shower by 5:30, coffee by 5:45, out the door by 6:20. I was productive from the moment my feet hit the floor because I had to be. Work demanded it. Bills demanded it. Sarah demanded it. She liked her coffee ready when she came downstairs at 6. But suddenly there were no demands, no alarm clock, no schedule. No one expecting anything from me at any particular time. And I thought that was going to be wonderful. It was hell. You know what happens when you don't have a reason to get up early? You still get up early. Your body won't let you sleep past 5:30, no matter how late you went to bed. But instead of jumping into action, you lie there. You think about yesterday's mistakes. You worry about today's emptiness. You wonder if your life has any purpose anymore. Then you finally get up, but you move slow, real slow. You shuffle to the kitchen like you're underwater. You make coffee, but you don't really taste it. You turn on the news, but you're not really watching. You're just filling time until something, anything, gives your day some meaning. By 8 a.m., the most productive hours of your day are gone, wasted on worry and wondering what the point of anything is anymore. I burned through 3 months like this. April, May, June of 2017. And every month my checking account got a little smaller. Not because I was spending more. I was actually spending less than I ever had because I was earning nothing. And when you're earning nothing and drawing down savings every month, you can do the math pretty quickly on how long you've got left. By July, I was desperate enough to try anything. I read every retirement book at the library. I watched Dave Ramsey videos until my eyes hurt. I even went to one of those financial planning seminars at the Holiday Inn where they serve stale donuts and try to sell you annuities. Nothing worked. Not because the advice was wrong exactly, but because all of it assumed I had money to invest, or a plan to follow, or some kind of system already in place. What I had was time. Specifically, I had the hours between 5:30 and 8:30 every morning when my mind was clear, my energy was high, and the world was quiet. I just didn't know those hours were worth more than gold until I met Frank Martinez at the VA hospital. Most people click away when someone tells them their morning routine is costing them money. You didn't. Hit subscribe. Frank was 72, a Vietnam vet who'd been coming to the VA for physical therapy after a hip replacement. We ended up in the waiting room together 3 mornings in a row that August, and the third morning I noticed something. Frank was always writing in a little leather notebook, not reading magazines like everyone else, not staring at his phone, writing. "What are you working on there, Frank?" I asked him. "Making money," he said without looking up. I laughed. "In the VA waiting room?" That's when he looked at me, really looked at me. "Harold," he said. He'd heard the nurse call my name. "How long you been retired?" "4 months. You wake up early?" "Every day, 5:30, like clockwork." "What do you do with those first 3 hours?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "Nothing," I said. "Watch the news, drink coffee, wonder what I'm supposed to do with the rest of my life." Frank nodded like he'd heard this story 1,000 times. "Harold, you've got the most valuable thing in the world and you're throwing it away every single day." "What's that?" "Quiet morning hours with a clear mind and no interruptions." He closed his notebook and leaned forward. "Let me ask you something. What did you do for work?" "Accounting." "You good at it?" 32 years, I was good at it." "Still good at it?" "I mean, yeah, numbers are numbers." Frank smiled. "Harold, there are about 10 million small businesses in America right now that need their books done, their taxes figured, their receipts organized. And most of them need it done early in the morning or late at night because that's when the business owners have time to think about it." I stared at him. "You're talking about freelance work." "I'm talking about using 15 minutes every morning to make more money than most people make in a day." That sounded impossible. I told him so. Frank opened his notebook and showed me a page covered in numbers. "See this? This is what I did yesterday morning between 6 a.m. and 6:15. 15 minutes. I updated the inventory spreadsheet for a construction company in Phoenix. They paid me $85. Day before that, I spent 15 minutes reconciling bank statements for a restaurant in Dallas. $120. Day before that, 15 minutes building a simple budget template for a retail store in Atlanta. $95. He flipped the page. More numbers. This month, 15 minutes every morning, Monday through Friday, $2,300 so far. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Real hope. "Frank, how do you find these businesses?" "That's the beautiful part, Harold. They find you. But you've got to set it up right. And you've got to understand why morning work is different from any other kind of work. Frank explained something that changed how I think about time forever. He said, when you're over 65, your mind works differently in the morning than it did when you were younger. Clearer, faster, less distracted. But only for a limited window, usually between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. Young people, Frank said, they can work all day, but their minds are scattered. They're thinking about their kids, their mortgage, their boss, their social media. Us? Our kids are grown. Our mortgage is paid or it's not going to get paid. We don't have a boss, and most of us don't care about social media. When we sit down to work in the morning, we work. Pure focus, pure efficiency. He was right. I knew he was right because I remembered those mornings at the accounting firm. The first hour of every day was always my best hour. The hour when I got the most done, made the fewest mistakes, solved the hardest problems. So how do I start? I asked. Frank looked at his watch. Well, your appointment's in 5 minutes, so I'll give you the short version. But Harold, if you want to do this right, there's a system, and it starts with understanding what I call the morning advantage. That's when Frank told me about something he'd learned from a guy in his church, something called the morning $500 rule. 15 minutes every morning before 7 a.m. That's all it took. But there was a specific way to structure those 15 minutes, and a specific type of work that generated the most money per minute when you're over 65. The details, Frank said, as they called his name for physical therapy, are in something I put together. Called it my morning system. I'll bring it next week if you want to see it. I wanted to see it, desperately. That night I couldn't sleep, not because I was worried for the first time in months, but because I was excited. I kept thinking about those 3 hours I'd been wasting every morning. 3 hours of clear thinking time. 3 hours of quiet. 3 hours when I could focus completely on making money instead of watching other people talk about money on TV. The next morning I got up at 5:30 like always. But instead of shuffling to the kitchen and turning on Fox News, I sat down at my kitchen table with a notebook and a pen. I wrote down everything I could remember from my conversation with Frank. Then I opened my laptop, the one I'd barely touched since retirement, and started looking. Looking for small businesses that might need bookkeeping help. Looking for entrepreneurs who might need their finances organized. Looking for anyone who might pay me to do in 15 minutes what I used to do for 8 hours a day. What I found surprised me. Frank wasn't exaggerating. There were thousands of small businesses looking for exactly the kind of help I could provide. Restaurants that needed their daily receipts entered into spreadsheets. Retail stores that needed their inventory tracked. Service companies that needed their invoices organized. But here's what Frank understood that I didn't yet. It wasn't just about finding the work. It was about doing it at the right time and in the right way. See, most freelancers try to compete on price. They offer to do bookkeeping for $15 an hour or $20 an hour, and they end up working all day for peanuts. Frank had figured out something different. He didn't compete on price. He competed on speed and timing. Small business owners, Frank explained when I saw him the next week, don't want someone to work on their books for 4 hours. They want someone to solve their immediate problem in 15 minutes so they can get back to running their business. And they'll pay premium prices for that kind of efficiency. Think about it, Harold, Frank said, showing me his notebook again. A restaurant owner comes in at 6 a.m. to prep for the day. The first thing he does is look at yesterday's numbers. How much did we make? How much did we spend? Are we on track for the month? If his books are a mess, that simple 5-minute review turns into a 2-hour headache. But if someone like you, spent 15 minutes the night before organizing everything into a simple daily report, That restaurant owner would pay good money for those 15 minutes. Frank was right. And the next Monday morning, August 21st, 2017, I tested it. I found a small auto repair shop in my town that was looking for bookkeeping help. Instead of offering to do their books for $20 an hour, I offered something different. I offered to spend 15 minutes every morning organizing their previous day's receipts, invoices, and payments into a simple daily summary that the owner could review in 2 minutes. I charged $75 for those 15 minutes. They said yes immediately. That first morning, I sat at my kitchen table at 6 a.m. with a cup of coffee and my laptop. I logged into their accounting system, downloaded yesterday's transactions, and organized everything into a clean, simple report. 15 minutes exactly. I emailed it to the owner at 6:15. He called me at 6:20. "Harold, this is exactly what I needed. Can you do this every morning?" By September, I had 4 businesses paying me for 15-minute morning sessions. By October, I had 8. By November, I was making more money in 1 hour every morning than I used to make in a full day at the accounting firm. But the money wasn't even the best part. The best part was how it changed everything else about my day. See, when you start your morning by making money, real money, money you earned with your skills and experience, everything else feels different. You're not killing time anymore. You're not wondering if you have any value anymore. You're not worried about your bank account anymore. You're productive. You're needed. You're earning. And that confidence, that sense of purpose, that feeling of being useful, it carries through your entire day. You walk different. You talk different. You make better decisions about everything because you started the day by proving to yourself that you still have something valuable to offer the world. My neighbor Bill saw this change in me. He asked what I was doing differently, and I told him about the morning routine, about Frank, about the 15-minute sessions, about the money I was making. Bill was skeptical. "Harold, I was a high school principal for 38 years. What am I going to do in 15 minutes that someone will pay me for?" I thought about it. "Bill, how many times did you have to write recommendations for college applications?" "Hundreds, maybe thousands." "You good at it?" "I could write a recommendation letter in my sleep." "Well, there are about 50,000 high school seniors applying to college right now who need recommendation letters, and their teachers are overwhelmed, and their counselors are overwhelmed, and their parents are desperate for help." Bill started his morning routine 3 weeks later. He charges $150 for a 15-minute consultation where he helps parents understand what colleges are looking for in recommendation letters. Then he charges another $200 if they want him to actually write a draft they can customize. That Thursday morning when he knocked on my door with the check, he'd helped 3 families the day before. 45 minutes of work, $1,650. "Harold," he said, "I wish someone had told me about this when I first retired. I wasted 2 years wondering what I was supposed to do with myself." That's when I realized Frank hadn't just taught me how to make money in the morning. He'd taught me something bigger. He'd taught me that retirement isn't about stopping work. It's about choosing the right work. Work that uses your experience. Work that solves real problems. Work that pays what you're actually worth. After everything I learned, the morning $500 rule, the timing principles, the client attraction system, all 7 of them, they're in something called the Wealth After 65 Code. I wish someone had given me this when I retired with $11,000 in my account. The link is right below this video. But here's what I want you to understand about those 15 minutes every morning. It's not about the money, although the money is real and it adds up fast. It's about reclaiming your mornings. It's about using the best hours of your day for the most important work of your life. Because when you're over 65, every morning is a gift. Every clear thinking hour is precious. Every moment of focus and energy and mental sharpness is an opportunity to create value, to solve problems, to make a difference. Most retirees waste these gifts. They spend their best hours consuming news instead of creating value. They spend their clearest thinking time worrying about things they can't control instead of working on things they can control. But not you. Not if you understand what Frank taught me that morning in the VA waiting room. Your age isn't a disadvantage. Your experience isn't worthless. Your mornings aren't empty time to fill. They're the most valuable hours in your day. You just have to use them right. I'm 74 years old now. Every morning at 6 a.m., I sit down at my kitchen table with my laptop and my coffee. By 6:15, I've earned more money than most people make in a day. By 6:30, I'm reading the paper or working in my garden or calling my grandson. Not because I'm trying to kill time, but because I've already accomplished something meaningful. That's the difference. That's what changes everything. When you start your day by creating value instead of consuming content, when you use your morning hours to generate income instead of generate worry, when you prove to yourself before 7 a.m. that you're still capable and valuable and needed, everything else falls into place. Your bank account grows. Your confidence returns. Your days have purpose again. Your retirement becomes what it was supposed to be all along. Not the end of your productive years, but the beginning of your most profitable ones. Do me a favor. Write in the comments, I start now. 3 words, that's all. Because starting is the hardest part, and you just did it. 65 isn't when you stop making money. It's when you start making money on your own terms.